Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Getting Creative With, the show where AADL staff engage with an arbitrarily chosen topic to stay playful, stay inspired, and, as the name implies, creative. My name is Ksenia, and with me today are AADL staff members Aurora, Mackenzie, Amanda, and Evelyn, and this week's theme was fabric. So we got warps, wefts, fabric contents, the fabric of reality. What did you do with fabric, Aurora?
Well, I thought about it. There's so many ways you could make something with fabric, and I really didn't want a big project to do it because it will take a long time. So I did something old-fashioned way. I get a fabric and I make a doll clothing. So this American doll dress, her shirt, her skirt down there. Using the pattern, different fabric, a little thicker and thinner, and then the white kind of fabric. And I thought this way, at least I accomplished something and it doesn't take a long time to make something for yourself, you know. So, and I thought it'd be nice too for holidays, if people wanted to make something for their kids or other kids' style clothing, was the thought. So.
Does the American Girl company, do they put out like actual patterns you can buy to make them?
I think these are old patterns that Kelly have lent to me at one point, and some of them, actually she gave me one of them that she had a long time ago she never used, because American Doll exists for a long time. I mean, even my daughter has one of those too. And these are much older patterns, not the new one. I don't know what they do now, but these the old patterns by Bolt and Butterworth, you know, those companies that used to have. Yeah. So
because I remember when I was a kid, we had Cabbage Patch Kids. My mom was a big sewer, and she sewed a ton of clothes for us, but they were actually like Cabbage Patch brand patterns. And I remember her buying those and making like Cabbage Patch dog clothes. And so I was wondering if because like they make such fancy clothes for you to buy for the dolls.
The pattern specifically say is 18-inch, so it doesn't have the American Doll, it's just any doll that within the height. So
cool. What does the back look like? Do you have like little buttons or fasteners on the pinafore?
No, I just use a Velcro to Velcro that on the back, and same thing with her shirt too. I have a Velcro.
Oh.
It'd be easier for kids to
take
it off and stuff when they play with it, especially if they like dress up and stuff like that.
That's so cute. I really like that.
Mm-hmm. Did you just dive into your fabric stash, or did you search out that color specifically? How did you come on that aesthetic, basically?
Actually, you know, was it 2 weeks ago that we did war that using t-shirt? So I use one of my old shirts, purple, old shirt white, and an old shirt flowers. And instead of not toss it out, I just reuse the material as a fabric for it. So I thought it'd be a neat idea, because a lot of times if you have holes on a shirt or stain, you could reuse it for so long.
Yeah, I know when we did the sock project, I'm always very gladdened to see my little sock buddy up there. And I've since acquired more socks with holes and that don't have their partners. So time to make more, I suppose. Yeah, beautiful.
It's always nice to give it new life and recycle something that you already have too.
Yeah. If you don't mind me asking, what kind of fabric is that? Because I am like fine with cotton and linen and things like that, but I am looking for tips and tricks on how to sew polyester or stretchy knits.
So this is actually kind of stretchy. It has a little bit stretch to it. It's you could tell. This one doesn't. It's more like I think thin cotton, but the shirt and the skirt, it is a mix, I think, polyester and cotton, so it does stretch. So sometimes it's a little bit hard to sew, because you could see it try to be stretched a little bit, and you just have to be mindful when you sew it. You don't pull it too hard to leave a sewing mark on it. Yeah, it's not fun to sew with stretchy fabric. You just have to be careful.
Yeah, I'm a really anxious sewist, so like I tend to pull way too hard when I sew on the material, and it just ends up kind of bunching if it's something synthetic or stretchy. So I just gotta relax. Just gotta relax.
Do you have the right needles?
Yeah, I do. It's just I tend to just just
Or some people, you know, when they first learn to sew, they just hold on to the fabric. They wouldn't let it go and keep pulling on it. I mean, in sewing lab, you see a lot of times that's what people does, and that's happened to stretch the fabric even more.
I gotta trust the machine. Cool. Well, thank you. That's beautiful. I love that it was like a double layered too. It's really really pretty.
How long did it take to make?
I would say the shirt took me maybe an hour or so, and the skirt, the jumper skirt, took me a little longer. I would say another 2 to 3 hours. I didn't keep track of time. I just just go get it done.
Well, it's a fun project too, like for people who want to, like, who have dolls. It's empowering to know that you don't have to get like store-bought clothes for your, your favorite toys. You can refresh their looks too. Nice.
Yeah, I have a very good memory of my grandma made me a dress for my American Girl doll when I was little. And I remember it very fondly.
Neat. Well, thank you for that, Aurora. That was really inspiring. I want to try my hand at polyesters again soon. But speaking of polyesters, the most synthetic fabric ever is plastic. So I actually, for this theme, made my own fabric, quote unquote, plastic bags. And so I took some grocery bags. This one is from Menards, and I fused them together. And this one I just did like a straight pattern. Like I just layered them, which is why it just says Merry Christmas on there, Menards and all that. And I just tried sewing it a bit, making some pleats in it and things of that nature, which was interesting because it tore a few times because the tension was too high on the machine for this, kind of very non-stretchy material. But once I figured that out, the tension, and once I figured out that I could actually sew quote unquote, with fusing the material with just my iron, I made a little pouch, a little buddy.
Wow.
That's cute.
Yeah. So and this time I just, like, obviously they're like Target and Walmart bags. So I just did that, but I started with some white layers that I fused together. And then I started layering these more colorful sort of abstract stripes on them from the Target bag. And I just kept layering. And I think all in all, I have 8 layers here in this little contraption. I was able to melt down the scrap plastic that I used to incorporate with my plastic bottle button, which I have right there. So to make the button, I melted down some plastic bottle caps and I put it on my little plastic scraps from the project and just blitzed them in the oven. And then I used a heat gun to keep them a little bit workable. And I put them in this mold, which has a molding to the bottom, a 3/4 inch dowel, clamped it. So after I did that, I just took a finishing nail and put the buttonholes in it because I didn't want to mess with the drill, honestly.
Wow.
But yeah, it's waterproof. It will tear if I put something super pointy in it and I like shove it in a bag somewhere, but it's great for like paintbrushes and art supplies, things that get kind of wet, mildew resistant. It's super fun.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So did you just to fuse the plastic, did you just put the bags on top of each other and then like a press cloth and then your iron?
Yeah, so I put them on I put down a piece of parchment paper on a press cloth, and then I put the plastic bags on that parchment paper, and then I put another piece of parchment paper on that plastic. So the heat was able to transfer directly to, through diffusion to the plastic without melting or singeing anything. Also of note, I used the lowest iron setting for this because I should take a photo of this and send it out, but I started with like a cotton setting, and it just like globbed together. It just became like this really hard shell and stuff. But this was time consuming though with the lower temperature, but it worked out. It's really pliable, really workable, and I highly recommend it.
When you were making it, when you were making it and you were fusing it together, were you just trying to fuse together like a big piece of quote unquote fabric to work with, and then you cut out your pattern or your shape that you wanted to actually sew?
Yeah, that's exactly what I did. So first I just started experimenting with fusion just in general, just to see how it would work. And once that started, I was like, oh, cool, this actually works. I did fuse a very large piece with some scraps here and there to make, a fun little pattern on there. And I cut out my pattern, and I actually fused the edges a bit. I sort of cauterized them in a way. It's like when you finish a nylon yarn on that, I just kind of singe it a bit, but that was with an iron, and that worked really, really well. And then finishing it up with some stitching was great. And that was, it was really straightforward. It was like the most tactile kind of straightforward sewing pouch project I've done, because you can just cut it or shape it into which way. Really uncomplicated. Yeah. I think the most time consuming part was the fusion. It just took a while.
Yeah.
How long did it take to solidify? Like, how quickly did it harden after taking the heat off?
Oh, within like 30 seconds. It's very easy to touch and to handle within 30 seconds. One thing I did think maybe, just because this is not pretty, really, it's a nice little prototype, but it's not like super cute. I think it would make a nice lining for something. So I'm gonna see if I can sew it into like a fabric pouch at some point in the near future. But it was a really great way to use up plastic bags. So
yeah, it could be a good lining for like a wet bag for like swimsuits or like toiletries, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
You could use a small one like people use for like a lunch bag, recycled lunch bag. That's kind of that they use a wax paper. You could use plastic the way you have it out too.
Yeah, that's actually a really good idea, because there's nothing really hopefully pointy in a lunch bag. This would make it really cool. And it's like it wipes clean. So I love it. So if I leave my lunch, I want to do that. But all right, Mackie, what did you do with fabric this week?
I have to stand up for it. Let me unplug my headphones here.
Oh, man.
So if I cut off sound-wise, my headphones died. So bear with me and I'll fix it. I had to unplug them for this. So I made a quilt.
Oh my goodness.
I don't know if I'm back far enough for you guys to see it completely.
Yeah. It's very festive.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not completely done because I don't have all the filling on the back, so you can kind of see the light through spaces. That stuff doesn't have the filling sewn down yet. And then I will attach, this will be the back fabric. So yeah. I had a bunch of fabrics already. It's kind of a Christmas, kind of spring. It turned into very pink and green when I really had a lot of holiday fabrics on accident, but yeah. So, and here's some of the squares.
Oh yeah, oh, that's so cute.
Oh wow. Oh, it's so detailed too.
So the squares are generally, all the squares are different. There are 56 squares, and I think I think there are no duplicates, but I'm not positive.
Oh my goodness.
Wow. So how long did that take you?
I am about, I think 14 hours in, 13, 14 hours. 5-6 hours of that time was just cutting everything.
Mm-hmm.
It takes forever to cut everything.
Mhm.
And the rest is just sewing all the pieces together. My mom does a lot of quilts, so I asked her how to do some certain things, and she gave me the most convoluted method of quilting ever. And so that's why it took me so long to sew most of this.
Mhm.
And I still have another step of getting the extra strips of fiber fill in there. And this is the material that goes in there. It's a fiber fill material.
Mm-hmm.
So once that's in there, I can sew the back on, and technically it's already quilted because of the way I've been sewing it.
Have you made a quilt before on your own?
Yes, twice before. This one I did on a machine. The last quilt I made was all hand sewn.
Mhm.
I didn't
Okay.
use a machine for that one, and it was, I think, a 3.5 foot quilt by 3.5. It was for a project for college.
Mhm.
It was like a myth. It was interpretation of a Greek myth. So I had different panels showing different stories from Greek mythology. That was really fun.
That's
And
cool.
then growing up, I did 2 quilts, one with my mom and then one by myself for my dad. They were strip quilts, so very similar to this one, but they were layered. That was a machine one. So I've done a little bit before. Kind of knew what I was doing, kind of didn't. Quilting's not usually my thing. Sewing machines are not usually my thing. My sewing
Well, you're
machine
doing
had
great.
to.
Yeah.
If sewing machines aren't your thing and you're making a quilt, I think you're doing okay. That's awesome.
I've had a sewing machine since I was 16, and I've never used it. I've used my mother's. So this machine has turned on for the first time. I had to go get some maintenance done on it because it wasn't working and I couldn't figure out why.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, your machine is back to working and you're sewing a quilt. So after
Yep.
that, you'll just want to keep going.
Yeah.
Probably
Maybe.
make some clothing. I have a scarf planned that I've been putting off because, sewing machines are my thing. I'm more fine detailed, small, little handcrafts. But we'll see.
Nice.
Mm-hmm.
Amazing. Did you plan it out beforehand on paper, or did you just kind of go however the spirit moved you?
It looks complicated, but it's actually not a complicated pattern.
Mhm.
It's basically you get 8 different fabrics.
Mhm.
Yes, I think it's 8. It might be 7. And you cut it's 8 fabrics with 7. You cut 7 squares, 6 by 6 inches, and then you cut them in strips.
Okay.
And then I take all those strips and I make all the little squares mixing and matching on the floor.
Got it.
So
Okay.
the little bit of planning was making the squares on the floor
Mhm.
and making sure they didn't repeat as best as I could. And then sewing the squares. And then the next planning stage was putting the squares all down and then moving them around.
Mhm.
That was the only planning I did, was just to visually see where all the strips were, make squares, and then visually see where all the squares were turning and shifting.
Well, it turned out beautifully.
Thanks.
Hey.
Where's it gonna go?
I don't know. I have a little hope chest that I have lots of blankets in. We'll probably put it in there. I'll probably show it off to my in-laws this Christmas, so long as it's done. And it's very girly, and my husband's okay with it. But if my nieces love it, I might let my nieces have it.
That's very sweet.
I also have a ton of leftover fabric from this. I was expecting to use more, so I might just make another one because I have enough fabric for it. So
You can make a pillow, some throw pillows.
Yeah. Headbands. Oh, so many
Christmas
possibilities.
doilies or placemats.
True.
We'll have to have another like scraps episode or something.
Yeah. Might just save the fabric for another one of the themes. We'll see if these show up again.
Another back opportunity cameo. All right, cool. Thank you for that. Amanda, hi. What do you think?
Hello.
Hello.
So this is an interesting, I was excited to do this one because I have a lot of fabric and I sew, and I was like, cool. But then when I thought about it, I was like, well, what do I want to do with fabric? Like, how do I want to do something simple? Like, I knew I want to do something, a smaller project that I could complete. I didn't want to make, like Aurora was saying, how things take so long when you want to sew something that, or a quilt. Like, I didn't want a 13-hour project. And I was like, oh, Evelyn's going to be here. Evelyn's probably going to show off a pair of pants or something. So I'm like, what am I going to do? And so I went to my fabric stash, which is smaller than it used to be. But I dug out some vintage knit fabric that I've had for probably since I started sewing in like 2004. But there are these amazing like vintage knits that are really thin, like a jersey knit. They're really thin, with these really cool stripes, and they're just really cool and really fun. And I was like, well, what can I do with that? And I didn't want to. And then I decided I wanted to make a little cowl out of one of them, and I chose this fabric to make my cowl. This is not the cowl; it's just like a thin jersey. But again, as Cynthia was saying, knits are not the most amazing thing to work with. And I'm not super into following the rules of sewing and using special settings on my machine and special needles and all that jazz. But I used to sew a lot with knits. I've used part of this fabric for like redoing t-shirts and putting on like new neckbands and armbands, that kind of thing. So I decided to make a little thin cowl. I've been wearing lots of, working from home, I've been using a lot of like little, call them house scarves, like little scarves they wear in the home because I'm just chilly. And I wanted a lighter weight one that I could sleep in. And so I made a little cowl, and I didn't use a pattern, and it's really simple, but I like it. So this is my cowl basically. And I made the top of it a little bit, it's narrower on the top than on the bottom, so that when I put it on, it didn't hang open. I wanted a little more snug. So I basically just I kind of wrapped the fabric around my neck to see how long I wanted it to be. And then I just cut out kind of like a long rectangle, and then I folded it over. And then after it was folded over, and that's when I decided to make it skinnier on the top than on the bottom. Anyway, so it's skinnier on the top than the bottom. And it turned out nice, the finish of it, because again, I'm not using a serger, and I'm not using like really great seams. But I did, when I sewed it, when I folded it like this and then sewed the one edge here, when I did it, like the two layers instantly like flapped down flat onto the fabric, which was kind of amazing. I'm like, okay, that's great. Don't got to worry about that. And so I didn't want to zigzag it or do like replacement for a third stitch. So I just laid it flat, and this is the inside of it. I just laid it flat and did like a really wide zigzag, like what do you call it? A satin stitch, a really long satin stitch on it, just to keep those flat. And then I just ironed it, and when I pressed it, it worked really nice. Like, it's not puckered at all. It just has a nice, and I did orange because orange is on my machine. It still is. I like a contrast stitch. So anyways, I'll put it on. You can see what it looks like. It's so simple. It's kind of dumb, but, and it's a softer fabric too, which will be nice for sleeping.
That's such a clever thing to have to like.
Yeah. Pardon me.
Someone who was always cold.
Yeah. And I was thinking, and you could make it like, I could have made it like a longer rectangle, that way you would have hung a little longer. But I knew I wanted to sleep in it, which sounds silly, but I just wanted something lightweight, sort of like a little kind of a dicky version, or a little turtleneck that's not a turtleneck. But I like this fabric too. I didn't have to finish any of the ends with the knits. One cool thing about working with knits, because then you got to finish the ends all the way, and it's really curly. And so I wish I kind of would have made it a little bit longer, maybe like an inch and a half or two, just because it does curl up a lot. Like, this is just the natural hem. And then same thing on the top. It's just like a natural, I just let the curl. So yeah, it's just a little cowl. It's really cozy, and I like the fabric is soft. I'm glad I chose this one versus, like, I really don't like pink very much, even though it's weird I'm wearing pink. I like this fabric color a lot more, but the fabric wasn't as soft. And if I would have known I was going to make this, I think if I would have thought about it a while ago, I would have like washed the fabric, because I probably washed it like in 2005. But I was excited to use like some of my stash of, like, it's fabric that you like and you never touch it, I'm so over that, but I still have fabric you can't cut it, it's precious fabric. I mean, this is probably $1, like, nice. Cool.
That is really, really smart. I have a neck gaiter, I guess. It's by Buff. Like they make like micro, thin, really long sort of wool, what is essentially a cowl that you can kind of like put up on your face and everything. Like it's really stretchy too. But they're not the cheapest things. And that is just a really, really good idea because I also have like a bunch of fabric downstairs and just like in the form of t-shirts and other knits and things of that nature that I totally use for that. I make little toys out of them, like for, this thing. But that's a really cool idea. Can you like put it over your head? Is it long enough for that? Because
I don't know. I mean, I could like, I guess.
Oh, it's so cute.
Now the back of it's open. Like when I do it like that, the back of it, so it's not quite warm. But I mean, if I did, I could do a pony. Yeah, this is just pulled to the side. But if I did that, I would probably do it where I had the long, the wider end on top.
Okay.
Versus the skinnier end. But you could do that if you wanted to plan it out. You could do that more. So
Yeah. I think you
make this definitely longer. Like you could totally do this. Like if you think about it, just making this longer and then making your back, like that's totally doable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think you just reverse engineered one of those like 8-in-1 headband things that it's really, really cool.
We'll see.
Nice.
So yes, I mean it's kind of a simple project. And this knit is pretty forgiving, like it's not super stretchy. And I know like the seams aren't going to pop on it the way I have it constructed. And I didn't use any changing of settings or needles or anything like that. If it were a t-shirt, I was stretching over my body a lot, like the side seams probably would pop. Like I have had that happen in the past, like doing my quick and easy little way with working with knits. But this I knew I wasn't going to be like stretching it and making it like crazy. So I wasn't worried about the seams popping.
Nice. Yeah. And one more question for me. What kind of thread did you use for that knit?
It's just a regular all-purpose dual duty Coats and Clark. One of these babies back here. It's just, I didn't use any special thread. It's just, I like the dual duty Coats and Clark. That's what I'll do.
Nice. All right. Sweet. Well, thank you for that. Oh my gosh, that's so nice. I am, always cold, always with blankets and hats. So this is great. Cool. Well, hi, Evelyn. Welcome.
Well, so I did make a pair of pants. Like
I knew she was going to show pants, you guys. Girls got skills.
So I made, there's some sweatpant joggers. So here's the cuffs. They're it's the Hudson pants pattern. I can't remember the pattern company name right now, but Hudson pants. They're really great and warm, and they've got pockets, and they've got like a really cute pocket detail, which I like. But I have made this pattern once before and it went great. And then I made it this time, and I did I cut my pattern pieces out the wrong way, so that the stretch, instead of being like stretching widthwise, stretches lengthwise. So after I had like made the legs and they were complete and I just put them together, I was like, oh no. And I tried them on, and like I could technically get them on, and maybe they would stretch out a little bit more, but I'm not really looking for like technically can get them on in a pair of sweatpants. So then I added, just to make them bigger, I added this green racing stripe. Out of, this is the fabric that I made the other pair of pants like this out of. So I took apart the legs. I hadn't done the waist yet, so it was a little bit easier, but I took the legs apart, added the stripe in, and then finished them up. I still have to get a cord for them, because this pattern has like both, you do like an elastic waist, but then also a cord, and I'm just out of cording. So, well, I have like, I think like a baby blue, but I think that would it would just bother me every time I looked at it. So, yeah.
What kind of fabric is it?
It's like sweatshirt fleece, and I'm currently in a fight with my serger. So I did everything on the inside on the sewing machine. So the inside is like real ugly. I didn't press anything also, since they're just sweatpants for in the house. I I didn't really bother, I didn't do like pressing them or I don't know, edge stitching or anything. But yeah, it's sweatshirt fleece. And then this brown fabric, the company that I bought it from sells ribbing that's like in exactly the matching color. So
that's
it's
amazing.
for the waistband and the
Yeah.
ankles has the ribbing too. So.
And are your other ones just solid green?
Yep, the other ones are just solid green. And with the other ones, I didn't have the special ribbing fabric, so I just used the same fabric for the waistband and the ankles, and it also worked out great. So
it's interesting though to know like how much smaller it made it just by having the stretch in the wrong direction.
Yeah, and it's stretchy. Like it does. This fabric does stretch this way, but not nearly as much as it stretches this way. And so it just was like, just enough. And now, of course, that I put the racing stripes in because I didn't like remeasure because I'm definitely not a measure twice, cut once sort of person in any part of my life, including sewing. So I just like did them pretty wide because I aesthetically thought it would look better. So now, of course, they're like a little bit baggy in the legs, but they'll be fine for.
That's not a bad thing.
Yeah.
I think that's a really cool happy accident to need to put the racing stripes on the side because they're different than the other pair you made.
Yeah.
And it just gives it that extra little piece of like, indoor fashion, I suppose.
Yeah.
One thing's nice about sewing is that you could always fix your problems when you sew.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's why I like I've never done quilting because I find clothes to be a little bit more like forgiving, less exact. So obviously if you do a really good job at making your clothes, it's more exact, but if you just do a good enough job, which is what I do, then it's a little easier.
You can always just like do a French tuck with your shirt if it's like really uneven. It's just all of a sudden it's fashion. It's great.
Exactly.
It's supposed to be asymmetrical.
Right? Yeah, the shark bite hem or whatever. It's fashion. It's fine. Where'd you get your fabric?
So I think that where this stuff came from was Stone Mountain and Daughters, which is a really great apparel fabric store out west. I mostly buy my fabric online, which has disadvantages because you can't feel it, but there really aren't any great fabric stores around here for apparel fabric. Like Haberman's in like Metro Detroit is great for like really fancy fabric if you want to make like a wedding dress or something. But Joann's doesn't have a lot, and that's about, and then there's like some of the like discount outlet stores in Detroit, and I've gone there, but the fabric is, oh my gosh, Cynthia, your dog looks so cute right now and ridiculous.
I was dying not mentioning the dog. Thanks, Evelyn. Dude, he's been like that for a while, and it's been great.
He's just gonna stay there.
So I've gotten some fabric,
sweatpants, and the dog's just like, okay.
The Detroit outlet stores, but it's been like outlet fabric, and it's not great, and it's the thing about cheap fabric is it's super annoying to work with. So
yeah.
I have a fabric store, a friend of mine who actually taught some of our sewing labs, Amber. There's a store she mentioned close to Kalamazoo, and I'm gonna get the name from her and send it to you because it might have something you like.
Yeah, that would be great. Yeah, I've got a couple other stores that I like. Blackbird in Canada. And then there's another Canadian one, but I can't pronounce the name. It's like Louise or Lusso or something like that.
Nice. There's there are a few sewists I follow on Instagram, and like DIY Daisy is one of them. Oh my God, he's just look at the dog. It's fine. I'll stop talking. There are apparently a bunch of like really cool like fabric stores in New Zealand that I've been like dying to purchase from, but let's see, I don't even know. It's like there's also Tint of Mint patterns as well. That's also New Zealand based. It's just all of the cool fabric stores and like pattern stores are outside of the US.
Yeah.
But I don't know, have you had luck purchasing from fabric.com at all?
It's so funny because I can't remember like where I'm like on their mailing list and where I've actually bought from, because I know I'm on fabric.com's mailing list. I think I have bought from them and it's been fine.
Yeah.
And I know I'm on Mood's mailing list, but I don't think I've ever actually bought from them. I think
I know
fabric
that
a little overwhelmed
Ann
by it.
Arbor Sewing Center has a lot of fabric, but it's a lot of like quilting cotton.
It's like all quilt. Yeah, I've gotten a little bit of linen. They have some nice linen.
I bought linen too there.
And like some denim, but that's about it. And like when Pink Castle was still open, I mean, they were basically all cotton, but they had some of the really nice like Ruby Star Society cottons that are lighter weight and nice for shirts and stuff. But
they had some really nice stuff. I missed that. I missed the cotton.
Yeah. Looking at the Blackbird Fabrics Instagram right now, and their Liberty Florals line has landed. So I'm just,
oh my god,
yeah, that stuff is beautiful.
Beautiful. All right, well, cool. And now you have a pair of pants. That's
yes, another pair of sweatpants. Yes.
Fantastic. Yeah, I see like cute sweatsuits all over the place, and I'm just like, I can't buy that right now, you know, like those like tie-dye sweatsuits and things like that, and they're just very adorable. But it's really empowering to know that if you got some fabric, you can make your own.
Yeah, and I much prefer sewing to clothes shopping. So it's like one of my favorite things to do, and clothes shopping is one of my least favorites. So I just pretty much over the last couple of years have traded. Like I think literally the only clothes that I have not made that I've bought are library clothes, and I bought them all with fake money. So,
a fake currency.
Yeah.
Yeah, but when we are back in the library and you see Evelyn, you'll have to check out her wares because she's usually wearing something cute, and chances are she's made it. She's made some really cute like little jumpsuits and yeah, really cute stuff.
Yeah.
Where did you get your patterns?
So most of them I get online. I don't really use the big four pattern companies because I find them very confusing, and like they are all written for people I think who have like 50 years of experience reading patterns. I think True Bias is the name of the company that makes this one, the Hudson pants. But I get them online, and I do a lot of PDF patterns where then you can like download them or print them out yourself or get them printed. So
yeah, one thing I think is hard is the PDF file that comes in, and you have to piece them together in order to kind of cut it in.
Yeah, there's a company I use called PDF Plotting, and they print it for you on like huge sheets of paper, so that you don't have to do the taping. And that's really nice.
This is like what I love about this weekly little meeting is I always feel really empowered and inspired afterwards. So this is great. I've been putting off a little sewing project for a bit. And part of the reason why is because the patterns are just very hard to read, because I do use, some like, I like to buy vintage patterns in my thrift stores, and like all the weird little like arrows and things like that I just don't know how to read very well. So it's a lot of piecing together and making a lot of mistakes, but thanks for making it look so possible.
Yeah.
Well, if you give yourself like some test fabric to work with, you can make yourself a little practice, like get a muslin or some like an old shirt you don't want to use. And like, that's what I used to do. Like I don't like using patterns, but I had a tank shirt and I needed sleeves for it. And I was like, well, I need sleeves to fit it nicely. And so I had some sleeves from a vintage pattern, and I took the sleeves and I kind of tweaked it, and I made fake sleeves. And then I made real sleeves, before I cut my real fabric, I mean, it just takes time. And doing that trial and error, if you're with that kind of, especially with vintage patterns, because like the sizing is so different than now.
Yeah.
Like, oh, it's a size medium. Oh no, it's an extra small, like that kind of thing.
Do they even make this size person anymore?
Yeah, that's very hard to judge because the pattern, what they say, and then by the time you sewed it up, it's like, oh my God, it's either too tight or too big. You have to make alteration just to fit. So
Yep, good old basting stitch and the muslin and
Mhm.
Yeah, I had years of making like terrible clothes that wouldn't fit on a human body before I finally got it figured out. But luckily, I don't mind being really bad at things that I'm doing as long as I'm having fun. So
yeah. Well, I mean, when I first started sewing, like I started sewing a lot of knits and I started like restyling and altering like clothing. And that's how I started. And I made some really horrible looking things if I look back. But at the time, like I made this like crazy like turtleneck cowl thing. I thought it was amazing, but it was like way too short. The sleeves like started way down here. It was not supposed to be a drop shoulder, but I made the whole shirt by myself and I thought it was so great and I was so great. And because I made it by myself, you know, and that's part of the cool thing is you're still making it. And after you make, you know, 2, 3, 4, 5 more pieces, you learn as you go and your stuff eventually does get better, you know?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I grew up with my mom making us clothes. She liked to, for like the first 7, 8 years of my life, my sister's life, she liked to make matching outfits for us. Oh, we loved that.
And now you get to do your own thing. That's so
Yeah,
cool.
I know.
Yeah, your nieces would love matching outfits, right?
I made them aprons and they would absolutely hate it. They are so different.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I asked them because they had seen their step grandmother wearing this fun apron for baking, and they're like, we want some. And so the 9-year-old's like, I would like blue with a mermaid. The 5-year-old's like, I want a cookie and a cat and a monster and unicorns and pink, and it's like completely 2 different personalities. Completely, no, they would not. If no, one would be happy, the other one would be miserable. They're so different.
Well, as always, I'm thrilled and happy to have been with you for the last hour or so. And thank you again for everything. I have lost track of what theme we're on next week, but hey.
Patterns, I believe.
repetition.
Repetition.
Ooh, okay. Oh God, I gotta get started. Okay. Well, sweet, you guys. Thank you so much for being here, and I will see you again soon.